But the biggest irony of all is when a person propagating non-dual understanding is advocating for personal responsibility and decision. Somehow, I don't know how, they manage to mix or compatibilize the belief, because it's a belief for them, that everything is one or everything is interconnected, and the belief that the situations that a person, a human, is encountering is their fault. And they use some version of karma, even if they don't call it karma, to justify why bad things are happening to potentially good people. But if everything is one, there is no separate individual, which I happen to assert is the case. But if that's the case, then there is no room whatsoever for personal responsibility on decision making. Those two just don't mix well together. And you might say, yes, but we have to make decisions. I'll say yes. But who is making the decisions? Who is going for higher consciousness? Who is going for presence? Who is going for silence? If everything is one, there is no such a person, such an entity to do such things. And so many of them, so many of non-dual spiritual people are saying that if you are an asshole, bad things will happen to you. Let's say, or they advocate for a more non-separate understanding. And that's okay. You can advocate for people to be less selfish or egotistical or thinking about themselves. That's not incompatible in my view. But when you say that one person's surroundings is their fault, you have immediately separated a person from the rest of the universe. And that's as separate as anything can get, conceptually. So whenever you hear about empowerment or responsibility or it's your decision, it's your decision if you want to be a more conscious person. But if consciousness and if being conscious means understanding that everything is inseparable from each other, then nothing is your decision. There is no such thing, because there is no you separate from everything else to make such a decision. All you can say is that if it happens to be interested in spiritual matters, then maybe your interest is consciousness and you take it from there. But who can choose his interests? You know, Schopenhauer said, and I'm paraphrasing heavily of course, that you can choose what you do with the will that you don't choose. So, in short, you don't choose your will, you're willing, but you're choosing what you do with it. But of course, he misses that there is no separation between will and choosing to do things. Choosing to do things is will itself. And who is going to choose such a will? And that's the question in spirituality. Who am I? And you can, if you extrapolate that, in every case, in any case, and particularly in decision making, you can easily see that there is no entity to choose independently. Keyword. You can't choose independently from anything else. So, in looking on what leeway is there between circumstances and your decisions, if there's no such a thing as a you that decides, there's no leeway, there's no hole, there's no void there, there's no space to make a decision. If oneness is so integrated, you couldn't dream of making an independent decision of external circumstances, because there are no external circumstances if everything is one. So people, it's a lack of critical thinking. I think it's a weakness, let's say. It's a lack of critical skill to say that first there's everything is one, and two, that you can decide freely to understand that everything is one. Whatever. So, believing that everything is one and that you can decide to see that for yourself is like a cookie being half-baked. You know, the cookie is raw when you think that everything is separate. But the cookie is half-baked if you think that there is no separate entity in the universe or in the whole, and that I can decide to pursue that understanding. It's a half-baked cookie. You bake the cookie by understanding that even the decision to understand whether the universe is one, if it is so, which it can't be otherwise, there's one reality. But if there is one reality, you can't ever freely choose to understand that. So understanding isn't a choice. It is a phenomenal choice, meaning that there might be a phenomenal decision to understand things, or be of higher consciousness, or being more conscious, or whatever crap you decide, conceptually crap, you decide to pursue. But that is a movement like anything else. If there is one, then this one decides for any human to undertake a journey of consciousness. So understand that the universe punishing you maybe for being a jackass, the universe is being a jackass, and the universe punishes you being a jackass, but there is no you that has decided any of that. And the last point the last bastion of individuality in non-duality is to say that you don't choose as a person, but you choose as consciousness. Really? Yes? Is that what you are really saying? That by taking the stance of consciousness, you magically choose things? So, if I identify as consciousness, not as a person, let's say I'm Theodore, okay? If I identify as Theodore, I can't choose anything. But if I take my stance as consciousness, then I choose. What do I choose exactly? Everything? As consciousness? Yeah, maybe I wouldn't choose bad things to happen to this body if there was an entity called consciousness to move it. There's a huge fallacy there that we will explore sometime in the future. So goodbye until then.